Welcome into Pittsburgh Steelers Talk. I am Tom Downey, here to break down all of the latest rumors around the Steelers. And we have I'm going to call it unusual, unlikely, whatever term you want to call their trade rumor around Pittsburgh involving trading away quarterback Mason Rudolph. So Bleacher Report went through one player that each team should try to trade away. And their name for Pittsburgh wasn't a running back, wasn't a cornerback. It was the backup quarterback, Mason Rudolph. Now, as a reminder, which I kind of think Bleacher Report forgot about, so worth mentioning again, Pittsburgh extended Mason Rudolph through next season, by the way. He's the favorite to be the backup quarterback, and I think in all likelihood will at least get the opportunity to see if he can emerge as a future starter behind Ben Roethlisberger. Now, the big problem for me is that over his NFL career, Mason Rudolph has not been great. And I don't want to be like, oh, he sucks, whatever. He's a fine backup quarterback. But the guy that we've seen over his NFL career isn't someone that, even though he's pretty cheap, I think teams are going to be desperately trying to trade for. As far as I'm concerned, this doesn't really make sense to me for, frankly, any party involved. If Pittsburgh didn't want Mason Rudolph anymore, they wouldn't have extended him. Like, that wouldn't have been their thought process there. I don't know if other NFL teams are going to be falling over themselves to try to acquire Mason Rudolph either. I don't think there's a lot of interest there. If they want a backup quarterback that's cheap, they'll call about Gardner Minshew, not someone who, maybe can be your number two. Now, part of the pitch here from Bleacher Report was Dwayne Haskins has to be the future. Does he, though? Because, Haskins, I get that they brought him in, giving him a chance, whatever, and Joshua Dobbs is also on the roster. And, yes, the Steelers could find a way to justify keeping him on the roster and moving on from Rudolph to help things out and then make the transition to, in theory, Haskins down the road. But Haskins has been even worse than Mason Rudolph. And amid the, we'll say reported and fairly frequently reported off-the-field concern stuff or focus, attitude, whatever phrase you want to use there, do we really trust Dwayne Haskins? If you want to go get somebody else down the road, okay, sure. But Mason Rudolph is cheap. He could be I'm going to say serviceable backup, I guess, for you. And most importantly, you've committed to him. If you trade away Mason Rudolph, folks, you save less than $1 million on the salary cap this year and eat some dead money next year. Haskins, I don't think is the answer. Frankly, I don't think the answer exists right now once Big Ben retires on the roster. But trading him, I don't think you're going to have much interest there. So what do you guys think? What do you want to do with Mason Rudolph? Get your votes in for me down there in the comment section right now. Type in K for keep, or you can type in T for trade. Let's head now to Kevin Dotson. Now, there was a report out of DK Pittsburgh Sports, which we'll get into more in depth here in a second, that said, Dotson drew the ire of the coaching staff, blah, 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 and he wasn't putting in effort, and he's out of shape, etc., etc. And that report has now been disputed by several others out there. And the Steelers, in reality, are heavily counting on Kevin Dotson. That is someone that they need to be a key part of this team. So let's break down the initial report and then one of the ones that have disputed this. First up, as I hopefully pronounce his name correctly, Dejan Kovacevic, if I got that right, my apologies there, DK. Quote, I'm told by an impeccable source that the initial motivation for summoning Turner, that's Trey Turner, was a general dissatisfaction among the coaching staff with the off-season regimen of young Kevin Dotson, and that as a result, there was a very real worry that he'd be a viable candidate to start at left guard, i.e., he wasn't in shape. Now, that was disputed by, amongst others, Ryan Fittipaldo of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Quote, I haven't heard that from anyone that I talked to with the Steelers. I'm not saying there's not any validity to it, but I haven't heard that. And to be honest with you, if a guy is a little bit out of shape, I'm not too concerned about that either. Now, Dotson's been training, by the way, with Duke Manyweather and also Jeff Schwartz, because they're part of the offensive line gurus out there, outside of, the coach's staff, I should say, like the off-season gurus there. And they had nothing but praise for Dotson. I've seen photos of Kevin Dotson. He doesn't look fat. So I am inclined to believe everybody else, and that DK here is maybe a bit misguided if we want to play it nice there. The Steelers are banking, frankly, on Kevin Dotson to be a very key part of this offensive line. In a limited role last year, he was really good, playing left guard and right guard. They released David DeCastro. Now Trey Turner steps in at the right guard position. Frankly, I'm not that concerned about Kevin Dotson. I had him graded almost exactly where Pittsburgh ended up taking him, and I thought he played great in his first year. So all that factored in, even though the depth might not be great, I'm not concerned about Kevin Dotson. Now, do I want to see him take a step forward? Yes, absolutely. Do I think that there's been anything going on this offseason that's not the path we're on? No, I think everything's going really well right now for Dotson. So be honest with me, folks. What is your confidence level as we sit right now with Kevin Dotson to take over as the left guard and be the answer at that position for the next 5, 10, however many years? Get your votes in for me and rate it as well on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being that you've got no confidence, 10 the utmost in him. Folks, I want to thank every single one of you. You guys have done a fantastic job of helping us build up our Steelers channel. We are already past the 2,000 subscriber mark. Now I want to get to 2.5K. So if you haven't already, hit that big red button and subscribe for videos coming out every single day on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Our next Steelers rumor focuses in on the idea and the prediction, I should say, of signing Justin Houston. Now, Bleacher Report predicted that the Steelers would be the team that ends up signing him. And it does make some sense, right? This is one of the top, if not the outright best, pass rushers left in NFL free agency. And Pittsburgh, as a reminder, did free up significant salary cap space with the surprising release of David DeCastro. And at minimum, the depth is not great in Pittsburgh as it relates to the edge rusher spot. But more on Houston himself to start, right? As a more rotational player as he ages, he is still productive in the pass rush area. 8 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. I don't project that in 2021, but I do think Justin Houston, even as maybe your number 3 edge, would be able to get you, 5 sacks. That's your number 3 edge. That's really good production if you're Pittsburgh. So what do you guys think here before we go more in depth on this? Do you want to sign Justin Houston? Maybe it's dependent on money, but make a decision. Type in Y for yes or N for no. Get your votes in the comments section right now. Now, obviously, TJ Watt is the number 1 edge. Alex Highsmith is the number 2, and I am excited to see him. More on that in a second. But the depth overall for Pittsburgh, I don't think is great. Even though I am on board with the idea of saying, you know what, Alex Highsmith, this is your chance. I am on board if it's a hype train, okay, we'll call it that, the Alex Smith hype train. I believe he has what it takes. I saw enough flashes last year to say, yes, you can be our number 2 edge opposite TJ Watt. So I don't want to sign somebody right now that would stunt the growth of Highsmith. He's young. He needs the reps. He should get the majority of the number 2 edge rush reps opposite TJ Watt. But God forbid Watt or Alex Smith get hurt, this room is not good enough as it relates to the edge rusher spot. Cassius Marsh, Quincy Roche, those guys are simply not good enough. Now, I like Roche a lot. I was higher on Roche than where Pittsburgh got him in the end. But if you're the Steelers, and if you're concerned about the edge rush depth, which I think you should be, if you could put yourself in a position where Justin Houston is willing, and he may not be, if he is willing to come be the backup edge, play number 3 edge rush reps there, be the backup behind TJ Watt, behind Alex Highsmith, have some flexibility there, that starts to intrigue me. So maybe Houston wants that, maybe he does not. But if I'm Pittsburgh, I would call. keep him away from the Ravens too. Say, hey, do you want to handle this role? If the answer is yes, cool. Bring him in like a 1 year, $3-ish million deal. Otherwise, wait, find somebody cheaper, or if there's an injury, then doubly revisit that front for Houston.